Martin Luther King Jr. was a prominent civil rights leader in the 20th century in the United States. We know this. So is it appropriate for the anti-gunners to try to pretend that they are somehow civil rights leaders and civil rights activists as well? I think not. Let's talk about it when we get back. Hey folks, I'm Mark Smith, host of the Four Boxes Diner, proud American gun owner, constitutional attorney, member of the United States Supreme Court Bar, and best-selling author. If you have not subscribed to the Four Boxes Diner Second Amendment channel, please do so and show your love for the right to keep and bear arms. And please follow us on Twitter and other social media platforms. We're using those platforms to try to expand the popularity of our channel. Okay, quick story here about history. January of 1956 in Alabama, civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. has his house bombed. Days later, he goes to a sheriff in Alabama and asks for a pistol permit so he can carry, and his colleagues can carry, his security detail can carry as well. And of course, back then, Alabama had a discretionary permitting scheme of the type that we saw in New York in the Nysurpa versus Bruin case. And guess what happened? Martin Luther King was turned down. He wasn't allowed to concealed carry or carry a pistol outside the home for self-defense because the sheriff decided he didn't really need it, even though only days earlier his home had been bombed. In fact, if you go back in time, and I'll put a link to this story below, in February of 1956, there's a famous article that actually has the title of it, Negro Leader Fails to Get Pistol Permit. That's actually in the article that was talked about, believe it or not, in the Nysurpa versus Bruin case in the briefs to the Supreme Court. And I think it did make a difference in the court deciding that we have a right to keep and bear arms outside the home, and discretionary licensing schemes requiring you, the American, to demonstrate a need to carry guns were unconstitutional. But I want to bring this up in the context of not so much in re-arguing the Nysurpa versus Bruin case, but just to point out that a lot of the anti-gun movement people pretend that they're civil rights activists, right? They try to have protests, they go to the mall, and they have these protests in D.C., and they think they're civil rights leaders, but they're not. Why is that? Civil rights and civil liberties is about expanding individual freedom against government encroachment. Civil rights leaders and civil rights movement activists are trying to shrink the role of government in our lives, not expand it. But what the anti-gunners are doing? The anti-gun movement is actually about expanding the role of government, expanding government to control our ability to protect ourselves and to restrict our right to keep and bear arms under the Second Amendment. So if anything, as I see it, the anti-gun movement in the United States is an anti-civil rights, civil liberties movement. They're trying to take away our rights and the rights, mind you, of future generations of Americans who have yet to be born, so they won't be able to protect themselves and be able to use their right to keep and bear arms the way we can today. So again, don't forget the story of Martin Luther King in the 1950s, not being able to get a carry permit because a government official said he didn't have a need for it, even though his home had just been bombed. And also don't forget that when the anti-gun movement pretends to be civil rights activists, you tell them, no, you're not. You're actually anti-civil rights activists because you're siding with government over individual freedom and the Bill of Rights. Okay, I hope you learned a little bit something here today at the Four Boxes Diner. If you haven't subscribed, please do so, and we'll see you again soon here at the Four Boxes Diner.
Orders up. Table 2A.